Thank you for coming. Our Budapest Talk Night YouTube. Yes, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
My name's Patricia Finney. I write historical novels, blogs, stuff. I'm writing science fiction at the moment. I don't know why.
Actually, I was very interested about Oliver Cromwell, but there is a very similar history in Korea.
Yeah.
It is called Donghak Peace and Revolution.
Yeah.
And reason why I'm choosing this topic is that religion conflict.
Yes.
Religion conflict.
Yes.
Of course, there are a lot of some associated problem in UK and Korea as well.
Lots of big problems.
First of all, we have to understand what was going on, what was happened during 17th century in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And Donghak Peace and Revolution, it has happened 19th century.
Yeah.
And we have to compare the leader of revolution, leader of revolution between Oliver Cromwell and John Bong-jun. His name is John Bong-jun. He's the leader
John Bong-jun.
Yes, he's the leader of a peace and revolution. So first of all, I want to just go through the UK history overall. As far as I know, as the 10th century, King Egbert has been made a united of English. The Norman dynasty.
Yeah.
There was a Plantagenet dynasty. I don't know, my pronunciation is
Plantagenet.
after that Lancaster dynasty and York dynasty. York.
Yes. Well, that wasn't quite so quickly. It's complicated. It's
Okay, and the next dynasty is Tudor dynasty.
Yep.
And Elizabeth I,
Yep.
she's the last queen of
That's
Tudor
right,
dynasty,
yeah.
right? It turns to the Stuart dynasty. I don't know
Stuart
dynasty.
Yeah.
And James I,
Yep.
he is the first king of Stuart dynasty. First, and then Charles I,
Yeah, his
he
son,
became
yeah.
a king. And in that period, there is a very important event that was happened in UK history. Charles I, there was an English Civil War that
Yes.
happened. That was 1642. Puritan Revolution.
Well,
Puritan?
yes.
Or Great Revolution.
That wasn't a peasant revolt.
mostly middle class merchants.
Oliver Cromwell he was Puritan.
Yes, he was a
Yeah.
Puritan, definitely. Yes,
But Charles I, he's pro-Catholic.
he was pro-Catholic,
Yeah.
and they were very suspicious of him. What you have to remember is that England had changed from being a Catholic country in 1533 to being a Protestant country by 1558.
1558.
Or when Elizabeth came to the throne, and it's very unpopular.
Revolutionary religion, they are focusing on equal society.
Yes, they do.
I think
very much.
Donghak also, they are trying to make a society more equal with
Yeah.
this.
In Korea, you had the Yongban,
Oh, Yangban,
who were the sort of aristocrat families. Was that
It is called Yangban, yes.
Yangban?
Anyway, there was happened the English Civil War,
Yeah.
1642, between Parliament of England Army and Loyalists.
Loyalists. All the city, not all, but most of the cities backed the parliamentarians, and mostly the countryside backed the king.
Countryside.
Yeah. Cromwell wasn't a general until he was a very, very good cavalry general.
Cavalry general, yes. It is called Ironside.
Ironsides, that's right, because they have these like a lobster pot helmet with a visor, and they actually wore a uniform, which wasn't a new thing. Cromwell was quite a good tactician and also a good strategist.
Good strategist.
Yeah.
When I look
Sorry.
at him in the picture,
Yeah.
he looked like real man.
Yeah, he looks like
He
somebody.
looks very brave.
You don't want to argue with him, do you? You look at him and you think,
He's good looking also.
not very good looking. He had warts, and he actually, had, little warts growing on his face. If you look, there's one under his chin. Yeah, yeah. But he was not a great looker, I have to say. Tough guy. And actually, what he introduced was royalist cavalry would get together and then they charge at the enemy. And then usually you couldn't stop the horses galloping. So you'd end up miles away and it would take ages to get you to come round and come back. What Cromwell did was he taught the cavalry to be in close order, so not spread out. They were in close order and they didn't gallop.
He didn't gallop?
No, they didn't gallop. They trotted and then went to a canter, which is a much more controlled gallop. It's not a proper gallop.
Okay.
It's got the motion of a gallop, but it's slower. So they could stop the horses. So they could actually stop their horses, turn around and charge again. Revolutionary. And the other thing was that they were armed with pistols.
Pistol,
and swords.
Eventually, the Oliver Cromwell had won in 1645. Then Charles I, he asked to Ireland and Scotland to help, but they were defeated by Oliver Cromwell.
Yes.
That was 1649, and eventually Charles I has been executed.
Yeah, he was executed. Yeah.
One of the biggest turning point in history in UK. Many people say that.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
But this was the first time any king had been, I think in Europe, any king had been executed by his subjects.
This religion is that he want to focus on to care about more peasant and low class people, and as far as I know, this is coming from one of the category of Confucianism. Yeah. Anyway, let me explain you briefly Donghak Peasant Revolution. What was going on? 1894. The magistrate of Gogo, his name is Zhou Byung-ga, had created various oppressive laws.
Yes, I remember.
And he's trying to force to settle in unowned land in order to get rich from taxes and fines from the peasant. Obviously, peasant was very angry on this one. And the leader of Jeonbong-jun he raised up the army from the peasant.
What was Jeonbong-jun before he had this exciting change in his life?
Actually, he was quite a normal person, as far as I know.
Was he a peasant or was he a merchant? Or?
No, he was just one of the peasants. Yes, he's a part of the Donghak region.
Oh, that's right.
There is some similar history between English Civil War and Donghak Peasant Revolution. Is that Charles I, he asked foreign power to come to their country to protect their land. In Korea, it was the same thing. What happened that the King Gojong asked to Qing dynasty, Qing in China.
In China, and they also invited the Japanese in.
Yes, eventually the Japanese army involved this revolution. Because of that, the China Qing dynasty and Japan had war. Had done war in Joseon dynasty territory.
This is what you always want to do. Don't have a war at home.
Japan had a war against the Qing dynasty, China. They have some kind of authorization to stay in Joseon territory.
In Joseon territory and take over Korea. It was pure colonization. I think actually it's quite funny.
It was not colonized yet, but
well, that's how the English took India.
It's really
typical process.
Typical process, and I think the Japanese studied it. They were smart guys. They
studied from the UK.
Yeah, they studied it from the UK. Yeah.
Meiji Restoration was an extraordinary thing to do for a country as traditional as Japan. It just transformed the country.
If Japan didn't become strong very, very fast, Japan would be taken over by a Western country.
And unfortunately, Korea got stomped on.
Korea was quite isolated country.
It was very isolated.
Very, very isolated until 19th century.
It was hard luck for Korea because, of course, Korea got got taken over by Japan. Was that when after the Japanese helped destroy the peasant revolt?
Yes, they destroyed. Actually, there was a war. There's a last battle
Yeah.
in the peace and revolution. It is called the Battle of Ugumchi.
Yeah.
And actually, most of peasants they brought their weapon with spears,
Yeah.
wooden spears.
Did they have any muskets at all?
No, they have a
So
very
they
few.
won quite a lot of battles against other Korean soldiers.
Yeah, other Korean government soldiers.
Once the
But
Japanese were
Japan,
there.
they brought some newest technology. Is machine
Well, 98
gun
you've got
and
machine.
Rebel army was decisively defeated in
Decisively defeated.
decisively defeated 1895, and
And,
the leader has been captured. But eventually, he was executed.
Yeah.
I would say this Donghak peasant movement was actually last hope for Korea to transform our society. And
See,
work
that's
on-
from below, and in a country with a king, reform from below is never going to work.
Yeah.
And in the Civil War, the English Civil War, again, it was a faction of the king's court.
Kingston, yeah.
That was the start of the parliamentarians, that there were people who went over to Parliament who had been followers of the king.
Yeah. The clear contrast between Oliver Cromwell and John Bongjun is that
Yes,
Oliver Cromwell was successful
Yeah.
leader of revolution,
yeah.
but John Bongjun was
Did his best. He was
yeah,
probably
he
very
did
bright.
his best.
He sounds pretty good the way he beat
Mhm.
professional armies with his peasants. That's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether this message of Donghak movement is same as Oliver Cromwell, but main message from the Donghak Peace and Revolution was that actually land reforms,
Yeah,
one
land
of the
reform, yeah.
requirement from Donghak, and also punish corrupt officials
Yeah, shocking idea. Tut.
and accept Donghak religion. Even Oliver Cromwell he demand the king to accept all
Puritan, yeah. So there's always similarities. I think every peasant revolt I've ever heard of in Europe wants land reform.
Land reform is one of them.
Every peasant revolt wants to get rid of bad advisors
Yes,
and corrupt officials
plus
and-
lower tax as well.
and lower taxes all the time, every time. And not every peasant revolt has kind of some kind of a religious spine to get people to, because religion is a wonderful social technology. It is a social technology which makes people cooperate and cooperate quickly. I don't think that Donghak and John Bongjun were very similar to Cromwell. I've thought about this. Cromwell was a gentleman, he was a parliamentarian, he was never a peasant. There were peasant leaders, but they all got killed by parliamentarians, or got rid of. There was a strong religious element, that's true. But other than that, I don't see there's a lot of resemblance between the Donghak and John Bongjun and Cromwell.
What I found this fact is that king through the foreign influence
That's
and
true.
power.
Yeah.
The Charles first and King Joseon dynasty also through in foreign influence.
Drew in foreign influence.
Yes.
Actually, that happens with a lot of peasant revolts. A lot of peasant revolts, if they look like they're going to succeed, the king will call in his mates from overseas.
Cromwell is known as a dictator. Do you agree that? Dictator.
He didn't actually intend to be a dictator. He was offered the post of king, and he didn't take it.
Yeah,
he wanted to be the Lord Protector, which is how he thought of himself.
And what if royalists had won in English Civil War? Well, history would have been changed.
Very much so. Yes, very much so.
Wow.
If the royalists had won, there would have been a very similar absolute monarch like Louis XIV, And of course, Louis XIV was followed by Louis XV, and Louis XVI would also have been badly affected by revolution in the 18th century.
Like
So just like
French Revolution.
French Revolution, I think England would have been very badly affected as well.
Probably it would have been behind of democratic as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that later happened would not have happened.